All right, so a while back, I posted this animation and it got a ton of love, a lot of requests for tutorials. So I figured I'd treat you guys on Patreon for those of you who really liked the tutorial, and I would just give it to you guys. So this is not going to be on YouTube. This would be just here on Patreon. So let's get into how we did this, how I did this. Camera movement, a lot of volume, thousands of objects. So yeah, let's break this guy down and let's make it here. So let's just start off with the camera movement. So we're just going to build this thing from the ground up. So we obviously had a cube, and I added a bevel modifier to it to do that number. Oh wow, the bevel! I just got Blender 2.82, not completely used to the interface just yet with this new stuff. So we have a bevel modifier, and this is basically going to be the object that I use. So I'm just going to hit G and throw him somewhere over there, that doesn't matter. And we're going to get in another cube, and we're going to hit, I believe it's going to be X, S, X8, yes. Because this is going to be a looping animation, so we need to, it needs to be scaled to 8, because that's my favorite number for these loops. So I'm just going to delete these faces, and we have this guy. Now I want to make a particle system, but if I were to add a particle system, all the particles would go outward, and I want them to go inward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F3 and hit flip normals. And I'm going to mesh flip normal, so that whenever I go into adding this particle system and I click hair, they're all in there now. So if you look at the hair length here, you could see the hair is going inside and not outside. That's what that's the intended result for flipping the normals. Get a nice little grid pattern. So of course I'm going to have to add that cube. So we'll hit render, go to object, and then I'll click that cube, and then now it's just on everything. So I'm going to play with a scale randomness here for a second, like so. And I think, if I'm remembering, is it volume? No, volume didn't do anything. All right, so I think what I have to do is hit tab and put these guys here in the middle. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so if I hit tab, and then I can move them around, and that's what I want to do here for this render. And so if I were to take this box, I want to get rid of it. It's a very janky way. It's just to pop a wireframe on it, and now he's gone. So now we have all these cubes. I'm not super excited about their scale from my memory of the render. Not quite that big. So go back to scale here and bring that scale down. Gives you a nice little movement there. Get some scale randomness, have a lot of fun, and then we'll maybe hit that tab button again and suck them in a little bit more. Okay, cool. So we have this. Quickly get our camera here and make him face up. So, oops, 90. All right, and then of course you have to hit control, so you get those, everything snaps to a grid. And if I'm right, okay, location needs to always start at 8. And then we want to go to the camera and give it a pretty wide angle to start with. All right, so how I made thousands and thousands of objects. Very simply, I hit M, new collection, we'll call it box, new, and then on the camera, on the instance, what I did was just moved it here, duplicate it a bunch of times, go down here, and then duplicate this one here, duplicate this one here, select all 3 of these, and then bring them up. And I did that a whole ton, and so now you can see they're everywhere. There's a bunch. Now I want to go back to my particle system and bring that scale down some more. And now you get a poop ton, a crap ton of boxes. I'm going to quickly just pop a metallic material on this, make it a little bit darker. All right, so now we have this. Now we're going to run my camera through it so that we get the loop that I'm wanting. Look at all that. That's ridiculous. And that's just one, right? Yeah, that's one string. That's crazy. So let's get the box. My camera, sorry. And let's go to the preferences. Since I don't have all my stuff set up, I'm going to want to make sure that it is my keyframe interpolation is on linear. That's important to make it loop. So I'm going to give myself 120 frames. I don't exactly remember how many frames I gave it, but we're going to go with 120 for now. Actually, no, I gave it 240. Because all that camera movement, I needed some more time to get some more creative stuff. I'm going to go back 1 frame because I'll be rendering this in Eevee, and I want motion blur. And the problem with Eevee is if you start your render at 1, that'll be that first frame won't have motion blur. So you want to start that first frame at 0 so that this frame, which is the first frame that gets rendered, does have motion blur. So we're going to go back to 0. Now I'm going to click my camera and we're going to animate him to -8. So click that, go to the very end, -8 for now. I think it'll actually be 24 if I'm correct. All right, so I'm going to hide him. And I'm going to take this middle one, which is sort of the original. And let's see, where's my cube? Let's bring him back. Thickness on the cube so that we know what to... So I'm actually going to delete all these because this is too many to see, and I'm just putting out the bones of the animation, and I need to see what I'm duplicating first. Okay, so we have this. I'm going to hit Shift-A, Collection Instance. Oops. Collection Instance Box. Hold down Control, and you want those boxes to touch. You can see right there the edge of the edge of the cubes, which is why that's there, to make sure that it does loop seamlessly the way I want. So I'm going to duplicate this quite a bit, like this, and then this is the part where I go back and add 1,000 cubes. Now your scene's going to get pretty big, so you can see when I'm going around, it's like my world origin is kind of weird. If you hit period, makes your origin that one object, so it makes things a little bit more easy to actually look around your scene. So now this is the part where I go and I actually add all that fun stuff back to my scene. All right, so we're back. We have our big pile of popcorn looking boxes, and if we click play, we're going to go through this whole scene, and we're getting crazy fun, really cool stuff with a billion boxes. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how I did the motion in the animation. But first, this is too slow. Let me go to my camera here, and I'm actually going to extend. I'm going to double it. So it stops at -8. I want it to stop at, I think, -24. So clear keyframes, just from my my experience with where the math is. So the camera starts here. We're going to click the keyframe. Oops, I forgot to go back a frame. So we're going to go back a frame, click the keyframe, and we're going to go to the very end and -24. Yes, no change. So now my scene's going to be much faster, and that's what I want right now. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I did that camera motion, that moving back and forth. I'll give you guys a preview in case you don't quite remember it. That sort of hyperspace looking thing I did there. Now that's in the camera focal length right here. So, and I want this to be Bezier in my keyframe interpolation because that'll make it a more smooth motion. So we're going to start here, and then we're going to click a keyframe, and then we're going to go really far back to get that hyperspace look, maybe even farther. And what sucks is you can't see the keyframes. It's a bit weird like that. I wish you could see that. Okay, so it's going to stretch back. So we did the animation of it going, stretching back, like this. And then now we want it to go like this to sort of slingshot forward. So now if we look at it, that doesn't look that good. So now we're just we want that going out, and then we're gonna go really far over here and then get it going in like this, add keyframe. So now it does that. So that's simply how I did that part of the animation. You can see it goes out, goes in, stretches, and then goes forward. And then I slowly brought it back to where it started, and it started at 23.8. So we're going to go out, comes in, and then I just want it to slowly go back. I already forgot the number. 23.8 to right here. So 23.8, enter, so that it will loop just like this. So now we can watch the animation. It's going to stretch out, go in, and then you'll see it slowly go back to where it started, and then it is a seamless loop, and then we'll get that animation again. And then for the rotation, simply I keyframed just some simple rotations going back and forth like this, spinning around a little bit. So very simple on that end. So let's go ahead and now I'm going to add that volume into the original scene. So I'm going to get mesh, cube, scale it up. I actually want to add that to the box collection so that we can see it actually working. So we'll take that box and we'll scale him out till everything touches, because this is going to be the volume object. So it's fine if they intersect, just like that. And then I'm going to add a shading, go to the shading, delete the principled, and add a principled volume, just like this, add to the volume. So now we have that. We'll give the density at 0.1, and we'll add some emission strength. And then if we hit rendered view, we're going to get a little bit better stuff going on. Make sure ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, and motion blur is on. So now we have some volume. So now we have that going on. Now we're going to add those really cool lights into our scene. So I'm going to click the box, and we're going to add, I believe it was a curve path. If I can see where it's located here. We're going to add some geometry to him. So go into the curves, give it a depth of 1, and then to see where it's located, because it's a little bit weird on my viewport, emission, and bring up the strength of that emission. So if I can find him, okay, he's right there. Just like that, and then we will scale him up right over here. He is part of every collection, so let me see when that starts to intersect with everyone else's. Right about there. This part also doesn't matter since they are all going to be interacting with each other. It won't entirely matter. And then I'm going to bring that depth 0.005, 0.002. Just give it any color. We'll go with a nice orange. Strength of 30. And then I'll duplicate him to give a nice design. I believe I did 3. So we'll do that. These are too thick. So now we have these 3 things going on. I'm going to take them, duplicate them, bring them to this side, and then bring it up. It's intersecting with a bunch of cubes. And then what I did in the original one was I added a different material to that one to add some fun stuff. I'm going to go find my cube and go and shade him a little bit. So he's really dark. I actually made them pretty bright so we can get some nice reflections. And then I'm going to add a color ramp to the roughness and add in a Voronoi. Hit Control T. Don't have the Node Wrangler. Node Wrangler. All right, Control T. We'll do the object coordinate, and we'll use color. And then we'll change from Illucidian to Chebyshev, because that's my favorite one. So we get that really cool stuff. I think, no, we don't want that roughness. So we'll go to the white. I don't like this black portion of the roughness. It's too rough. So we just want a little bit of fun going on right about there, and then bring the scale up on these. And the last thing is a bump node. Maybe the last thing. We'll see. Cool. And then maybe also get a color ramp so that we can play with the base color as well to give it some more contrast. All right, it's looking pretty cool. And then the last thing, I keep saying the last thing, not entirely the last thing. Let's go to shading. We have our volume, emission, color. Make it whatever you want, and then you can bring up that emission strength a little bit. And then we made, I added a color ramp to the emission strength. Added a noise texture. Control T, object coordinate, the factor. So we're making more smoky looking fog here in our emission, just like this. If you bring this white portion down, it'll adjust the thickness of your volume. So I went there, and then this black portion here, we'll just give it a little bit to fill in that spot, those edges. And then say bring the scale down, which makes your fog bigger, like that. If you press play, you got a really cool, really crazy render you can have a lot of fun with. I don't like the color, so say I make it nice purple. Ooh, now it's pretty. So it's simple as that. Maybe not so simple, but that's how I created that render with some spinning. I didn't add the spinning, but you can make a seamless loop, really crazy, billions of cubes. Thank you guys for being here in this month. It is the 14th already, but I'm going to be getting out a ton of stuff at the next couple days. So I'll be working hard this week for the Patreon. I'll be dedicating my time this week for Patreon. So keep a lookout. A lot more posts coming this week. It's going to be really fun. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something.